Let me play it now. I gotta press play. Let me start over. No.
There we go. That's it.
That is?
It's loud. It's loud now.
All right. I'll just go with it.
I like the moves that you're bringing, Neil. That's how we get pumped.
All right.
Some work on the fade out.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, welcome to the Basement Series podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Tara. And we've got Neil with us today.
We have a special guest. So we want to, we're excited to have you, Neil. We wanted to talk today about events and virtual events and peer-to-peer and how that's having a bigger role in nonprofits today. But before we start off, what are we drinking? I have a special drink.
Ooh, is that Adam Sandler on your beer?
No, but it's a...
It looks like Adam Sandler.
It's a beer from Savannah, my favorite brewery, Two Tides. And it's called, the name of it is Convincing Timeshare Presentation IPA. I mean, how could you not purchase this IPA? So,
I mean, especially when it looks like Adam Sandler.
Right? It's kind of like Adam Sandler. He's showing us his timeshare. Anywhere looks better than my
his
house
hops,
right now.
Right? It's like the time continuum.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I had a salsa incident and I forgot to grab a beer. So I'm just drinking on the water today.
Oh, oopsie.
Next time.
Neil, are you imbibing or we're just drinking the water?
Oh, a little cocktail.
Ooh.
Gin tonic.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah. I like it.
What's your gin?
I think it's Fever Tree tonic.
Nice. We actually enjoy gin on this podcast. We have Negroni sometimes. Sandra joined us and talked about BBMS a couple weeks ago, and she was enjoying a Negroni. So,
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was
cocktail
nice.
Of choice.
Yeah, exactly. So, and for our listeners, Shane is not in today. He is out camping in Utah or something.
Question mark?
Yeah, I can't remember where he was. Somewhere where there's big mountains and things, but it looked pretty sweet. So
and no internet.
No internet. So
we all got to disconnect sometimes. It's a good thing.
Seriously. So Neil, how have you and your family been holding up over this pandemic?
I'd say overall pretty good. I mean, we were in New York near enough this time last year. In fact, we nearly to this day we moved to Charleston, so I kind of feel lucky. No offense if there's people off in New York, we dodged that because we got some friends there, and like with our young family being locked up in a small apartment, with no things like that, people there seem to have been finding it pretty hard. So I feel lucky in that sense. But now the no travel thing's really starting to suck because all my family is in the UK and they can't come over and we can't get back there at the moment. And we were hoping, Christmas that they might lift it, but I don't know, like nothing's happened. So who knows? So that sucks, but I think in the grand scheme of things, we're okay.
Yeah, that does suck. How old is you? Do you have a daughter?
Little boy.
Boy.
He's 2, and we found out not so long ago, we're starting to tell people now we're actually expecting number 2.
Oh,
congrats.
That's exciting. When's the baby due?
March.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, so that's cool. We're having a little girl this time, so it's nice. I can kind of split test. We've had a little boy and now a little girl, so I get to experience bringing up both.
Perfect combo.
Yeah.
We both have 2.5-year-old girls roughly, so we're right there with you.
Yeah.
It's quite an adventure right now.
All the madness that they are.
I know.
Are they back at daycare or school at the moment?
Yeah. Cece's back at school. She just started and she talks all the time now. And she comes home and she tells me, so Luke pushed Etta and then, just
she's
telling me all the gossip. Yeah. She's spilling all the tea. It's pretty awesome though, actually.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's really funny.
Yeah, mine just started preschool from daycare. And so it's a little bit different, but she seems to like it, getting adjusted and acquainted. But some of her buddies are there, so that's super helpful of who she's always known to kind of kick things off.
Are
Yeah.
you in Charleston as well, Tara?
What's that?
Are you in Charleston?
I'm actually in Chicago.
Oh, you're in Chicago. Jeez.
Yeah. So we don't have much of a yard, so we are also just making the most of our space these days. But we get out with our masks, so we do what we can.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just got to do what you can at this point. And we're all in it,
Yep. In it to win it.
That's right. Is your son at school or at daycare, Neil?
Yeah, we just actually we managed to get him in because, funnily enough, the daycare that was local to us is a Montessori one, which we wanted to get him in, but there was like no hope of getting in. And now, obviously, I think with stuff happening with COVID, maybe less people are doing daycare. They've had changes, so we managed to get him in.
That's awesome.
That's what happened with us. Like, nobody wanted to send their kids. I'm like, I'll slide on into that spot.
I don't want them in there. They're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small class.
Yeah. We're in a Montessori too, Neil, and I love it. It's great. It's like really good for her to kind of do her own thing and explore and learn from the older kids, but also the younger kids. I love it.
Yeah, and they don't call it play, they call it work.
That's right. They call it work, and they call their friend, every kid is a friend, right?
Yeah. No, I didn't know too much about it before, but obviously started learning, the kind of differences in it, and it's quite cool.
Yeah. They also learn how to clean up after themselves, which was big for me.
They have a little cleanup song.
Yeah, exactly. And she also has like this complex where at school she can do anything. She'll like, oh yeah, I can take off my shoes, put on my pants, whatever. At home, she's like, I can't, it's too heavy. You do it, Dada.
She's just a delicate flower.
That's right.
Location-based, what do they call it? Dependency? No, dependency.
Yeah.
Helplessness.
Yes.
Location-based.
Yeah, she knows how to play mommy and daddy, I think is really the extent of it.
It's that age, they're figuring it out.
I know. Well, now that we're in this new normal, which seems to be a normal for a while, a lot of our clients are talking about virtual events, right? And a lot of our clients depend on events for a pretty significant part of their fundraising programs. And I think it's not even just raising the money, it's building the relationships with people through events. And so I wanted to go to my peer-to-peer expert friend here, Neil, and see if you wouldn't mind talking to us about some events you've seen that are successful, some ideas you might have, and maybe just some tips and tricks for organizations to kind of take that event that they've always kind of been doing and making it, maybe a peer-to-peer event and kind of changing the way that they've created that event and expanding it across the community. So, yeah, I mean, what are some of the creative events you've seen, Neil?
Yeah, so I can run through a couple of examples. And I used there's kind of two different types of virtual events, I'd say. So the virtual events are more so when I refer to virtual events, I'd say they're kind of the typical stuff that's maybe been like galas and things like that. So not peer before, but where people were kind of getting together, for galas, garden parties, things like that. They were like ticketed events, which was much more about kind of bringing the community together, generally kind of higher net worth stuff. There's them, and then there's virtual, the other virtual events, which I call them like virtual challenges, but they're really like the virtual peer-to-peer stuff. So they've been traditional peer-to-peer, and they've moved over. And I think I've been big into virtual events for actually a while. I'm not going to say I saw this coming.
Ahead of the curve.
But you can check. I have actually presented on these for quite some time. I think 2 years ago at Peer-to-Peer Forum, we talked about virtual events. Obviously, no idea that there was a pandemic coming, and that was a reason to do it. But certainly in the peer-to-peer world, I think it's been a trend that's been coming for a while because traditional peer-to-peer events have been kind of slow puncturing.
Yeah.
When we look at our own data as Blackboard and the data out there in the market, and in fact, Peer-to-Peer Forum, which is kind of the seminal peer-to-peer event, a lot of them are showing, just declines. There's been a kind of gradual slow puncture in it. And I mean, some of that is like, market saturation. There's so many events
Yeah.
that are on there, but also I think like fundraiser behavior is changing. The newer kind of generation of fundraisers have got less interest in going to, a kind of 5K walk. Or those type of things. So I do think, this has been a kind of force multiplication catalyst to do it. And it's happened quickly. But, you've seen that if you look at like the impact COVID has had on like commerce, for example, like e-commerce has just accelerated and like bricks and mortar commerce is totally gone. And you see stuff like Peloton as well, which was going and gaining in traction, but it's now just like exploded. Like their stock has gone on 10x and people aren't going to gyms. But I think, there's some positive disruption there happening. And I do hope that one of the long-term trends we'll see here, we want to get back to normal, and we want people to go back to physical events because they're important to organizations. But I do think one of the positive things is hopefully people could discover virtual events because there's a lot of like advantages in them beyond the pandemic proof. All of a sudden you can reach a wider audience.
Big cost savings.
Yeah, big cost savings. And also some people just, we just mentioned we all have small children. These small children have activities and they have friends. And a lot of times it's hard to get out and go to these events, and then you become very selective, like you said. I only choose like 3 or 4 a year because I can't go to every event, even if I love the organization. It's just maybe the timing isn't right,
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting with a colleague today, and it's a great example. Is like, she's down in Texas and Houston, but she's been able to support the Cincinnati Zoo, which I'm assuming is where she's growing up, because they have all these virtual experiences. Like one of them is that you can walk with a hippo.
Oh, fun.
They've been doing a lot of cool stuff.
That hippo is very famous. We have her book, Fiona.
Yeah. It's funny, twice in one day. But that's funny because one, I don't think you could real life walk with a hippo. Maybe.
Right.
I think
probably not recommended.
But that's nice that she would have previously been down in Houston, and a lot of like what the zoo would be doing naturally is using the kind of physical assets that they've got to engage the people around them. But actually there's a massive amount of people who've been engaged in that zoo before that you're completely missing through that. It's not through the fault of what you're doing. It's because you've been so in the frame of physical and everything is around there. But now all of a sudden you can reach all these people who are really passionate about it, who've been engaged with it before, who are not within the immediate physical vicinity of it. So there is like a lot of potential upside in this, as we potentially go into the new normal.
Yeah, and perhaps like the new normal is you do have those community events where you bring people in. You probably, I don't know that a high dollar gala is ever going to go away, right? You kind of have to cultivate those big donors in a different way. But I think like a mix, right? Like those virtual events that maybe those live events that were costly can become virtual events. And then maybe you have like 1 or 2 smaller community events that bring people in your doors and in front of people when we can see individuals again.
Well, and I'm curious of how like a hybrid approach would work of you actually having a live event, but there may be this virtual space going on at the same time. Because I'm just thinking back to when we would do like a virtual auction leading up to our big gala, where it's like there's all kinds of things you can do to like expand the network, but also just build up to that particular event that could probably get a lot of engagement too.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and in fact, giving days have kind of been doing that for a while. Like big university giving days were really, really gaining in popularity. And in fact, K-12 schools were picking them up. Some other traditional nonprofits were starting to pick it up as well. But they'd started to do that hybrid approach anyway, because you've got a bunch of people, the students who are on campus and engaging, but then you've got all the alumni who are, scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
Started to use video and things like that to bring those two communities together. You've got the offline community and the online community, and it's, having them feel part, because traditionally for giving days, right, as an alumni, the experience is you're just going to literally an online donation form on the website and donating, and like
Yeah.
that's, on the giving day,
Pat yourself on the back.
you miss that huge sense of like community. And how do you showcase the people together? How do you show them the students that are there on the day and make them feel connected to their other alumni as well?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think, there's a bright future for that hybrid approach.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good point, especially for, organizations that have that alumni type of, they are all over the place. Animal shelters actually,
Yeah.
like you might have adopted an animal from that shelter. And in fact, I know that I have a connection with a shelter not in Charleston. I could participate in perhaps something and support them, but I'm not in that city anymore. That's a good idea. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think animal stuff I've noticed actually, even before we got into this, but now especially, there's a lot of good content. So if you're looking to do live streaming and things like that, like you got Fiona the Hippo, cat yoga is another one I've seen as well.
Oh,
I've heard about that.
what
I
is
have
cat
not seen
yoga?
what that entails though.
People doing yoga with their cats.
I've seen goat yoga. Is it
So,
similar to goat yoga?
so you just log into Zoom and you do yoga with your cat?
Yeah, it's like a
That's amazing.
activity that you're doing together, and I mean, the cats respond to it somehow.
I'm really into. My dogs like when I do yoga.
Yeah.
You can start dog yoga.
Yeah. Okay.
Start your dog yoga page tomorrow.
All right. I like it.
But yeah, I think animal organizations have done pretty well when it comes to that type of content, because I think people would see it, and it's the same with zoos, because you can't go into the zoos anymore, but people still want to see and experience the animals, and there's smart ways to gamify that. On the zoo front, there was another one that I really liked at this zoo. There's a couple of zoos that did it. It started off in the UK, but Bronx Zoo did it here, and I think one in Texas did it as well. But basically, they live streamed the feeding of bugs to one of the animals. I think it was like a meerkat, and you could actually do it for Valentine's Day. So you could.
Oh, the cockroach thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which again is just like really clever and opens it up to a massive audience. And it was a nice, like, the way that I think it initially started was it was like for the people who found Valentine's Day a little like over the top and buying gifts. So it's like, why don't you name like a cockroach after your loved one, and a meerkat? And it changed it for like, you can name it after an ex. So like somebody like, and then you get to log in and you watch, your cockroach named after your ex being fed to the meerkat.
I mean, it just makes it fun,
Yeah.
like there's all kinds of creative things you can do. Up here, I mean, in Chicago, we've got lots of arts and cultural spots, and the aquarium had so you have the Field Museum, which is more of like history, and then you have the Shed Aquarium, and like the T-Rex was walking around the shed checking out things, and then the penguins were walking around. So I mean, they were just engaging the animals there, which were just hilarious to watch online.
Yeah. Is that the one that did the penguin like tour? Like you could tour the penguin.
Penguins were just like,
They
the
were like
penguins
loose?
were just walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were loose.
Yeah. I had to watch that because penguins are cute.
So
okay, that's an example. The cockroach thing is an example. How are people facilitating the donations from that? So basically, are they doing like email campaigns? Are they doing peer-to-peer things? Like, what are some of the ways that they're raising money in that?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. Really, it's a lot of them, as part of the live streaming content, because the ones that anyway that we've seen that are on video is they have a donation ask alongside the live streaming piece there as well. So the call to action is like, go and watch the live stream, and then as you're watching it, there's the opportunity to donate as well. And we from a technology perspective have done a lot of development in that area as well, as taking like live streaming, because a lot of the platforms people will use at the moment are things like Twitch is a really big one, and YouTube. And the problem with those traditionally is like, yeah, the live streaming's there, but there's not actually an easy ability to donate as like part of that as well. There'd be a link to go out to the charity's website, which just breaks the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So we've done some work on the Just Giving front to actually integrate in with those platforms as well, so that you can have a donation button there. And even more so, you have like things like graphics as part of the video that come up. So when somebody donates, there can be a little like $ pop up there as well.
that's fun.
Yeah,
That is
and
fun.
it just makes it feel like, when you're kind of logging on there, and especially when it's not like a physical event, which you're used to in the past, there's like a little bit of social proof about all that fundraising. You're seeing like the donations go up, you're seeing things pop up, and it
It's
gets you,
interactive.
yeah, and other people
Yeah.
are seeing and taking part of it as well. And, you want to be part of that because there is that social proof of people giving and donating.
That's cool. So I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have any like screen shares or like live events to share?
I do. I can show you an example here, actually. Um, yeah, so this is just an example so this is a standard fundraising page. And as I mentioned before, when people were live streaming, a lot of what they were having to do was on the native platform. So you go to like YouTube or Twitch. And to integrate, the donation stuff into there, you can do that, and you can connect it up. It requires like a little bit more technical expertise than, if you're not a regular streamer, like user of YouTube. And there's a few steps that you've got to go through. So one of the things that we did is say like, okay, well, let's bring the feed from there into the Just Giving page.
Okay.
So it kind of creates the same effect without, necessarily the person having to do some of the technical stuff to integrate it the other way. So you can see there, this is just an example of that and how it looks on the fundraising page. So I won't play this because I'm not convinced how the sound and everything that will work. So there's actually a recording of the video in there now, but at the time you could have logged in and seen a live video. And this was actually an athlete, I believe in the UK, who did this, and they did a marathon in their back garden. So they've got a 6-meter back garden.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, London Marathon, New York Marathon, like all those things, like they're not happening now. They may, I actually think maybe London Marathon is happening to some degree at the tail end of this year. They kicked it to next year. But anyway, there's a lot of uncertainty around those major marathons. They're certainly never going to be at the same scale. They're going to have to cut back on, the number of people taking part and things like that. So yeah, what this guy did was actually a marathon in his 6-meter back garden.
So he just like ran a circle?
Yeah, he just ran a circle.
Him and was it not Major Tom, Captain Tom?
And yeah, of course you've got Captain Tom as well, which is a different. But yeah, that's just a nice thing he can do. The technology is, of course, always like really humble on this. Like, no technology can take credit for being able to do this. This is the passion and ingenuity of like individual fundraisers. But what the technology allows is like, there wasn't an easy way for us to see this before. Like,
yeah.
Unless he's got whatever to be able to like broadcast it out to people and get the reach. But by kind of integrating it simply into the fundraising experience, it's just democratizing that experience for a lot of different people to do it.
So James, in this case, went into Just Giving. He logged in. He set up a page and he set up this live stream and, advertised, of course, like I'm going to do this, log in. And then people could come to this page and on the right-hand side right there, they could donate.
Yeah.
As simple as it is. That's super, honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing. That's super cool. I should know.
Yeah. I think that's part of it in all of this. Like what I'd say to a lot of nonprofits as well, because like coming up with a concept, particularly for a virtual event like this, like there's a lot of like work and ideation and like what do we do and like what's our audience and things like that. But at the beginning, just giving your supporters the technology to use and see what they do.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of like innovation comes from. It's just like put the technology in the hands of supporters and they will come up with some like crazy stuff themselves. And then you can take those ideas and, maybe the NHS decides to take this, like this wasn't their event. They didn't sanction it, so to speak. But, they can then take this idea and maybe they decide to do like the back garden marathon becomes like an event next year.
It's like the ice bucket challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. So if the organization, just like technically, if they wanted to do this and they wanted to create something, they could come to us and we could help them build out like a whole event, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll show you the kind of development of this. So this is all like, consumer driven to a certain extent. Like if you have a Babel peer-to-peer platform, you don't need to create a campaigner around it. You just give your supporters the link and they go click it, they create their fundraising page and they can do this themselves.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah. So I was saying, obviously there's the kind of consumer angle to go at. It's just like, not quite if you build it, they will come, but just put something out there and see what your supporters do, because you never know. Like, a lot of organizations potentially put a lot of pressure on themselves to be like, we need to come up with like that ice bucket challenge or like that event to do it. You spend a lot of time thinking about it, and often, first time doing it is hard to get success that way, and you can just burn a ton of calories and trying to find out, figure out what people will like. But actually, if you just give them stuff, like, let them come up with some ideas, and it's easier for you to come in and like scale that stuff that was working and getting traction than it is sometimes for you to come up with the ideas yourself.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's a good point.
I remember I worked at a hospice, and the people that would put on events for us, they were always very creative. Like, and they would do these events sometimes year after year after year. And this was a little bit before like a peer-to-peer platform like this was available. But they would do things like, a motorcycle ride that was specific to like the memory of their mom, right? Or, just different events that actually gave a lot of meaning to themselves, but they did raise a good amount of money. So I think when you give them the opportunity and you give them the tools, I think the tools are important too. When you say, hey, you can use this platform, this is where people can give their donation, this is where they can do their thing, that makes a difference, and it makes it more accessible for those individuals to like really go and do their event.
Yeah, I definitely agree that. I think the accessibility is a big thing.
Yeah.
And, also as the organization, and even as like Batbot, our kind of role in this is providing technology, and I think helping share the success of what we're seeing, our customers, and in turn their support doing. It's the same for the clients. Don't feel that you have to be the one coming up with all the ideas. Like, give it to your supporters and see what they can come up with.
Yeah.
Can you see this?
Yeah, that one looks fun.
Yeah, so this is a good example. So I mentioned give it to the supporter, and then there's the opportunity where you're looking to do something a bit more structured, or what it is that you want to do. And this was actually Charleston Animal Society, who are on our doorstep here. They had the kind of traditional idea of where it's replacing an existing physical event that they needed to do, because they've got this chili cook-off, and I'll probably get this wrong, but I mean it raises in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and you can see from the type of stuff that they do. They have this guy who is some famous dog whisperer.
Yeah,
that's fun.
So I mean, they just had it's so unfortunate, that these events can't go ahead, because they're a real like institution, this local chili cook-off, and
Sure.
you can see that they have all these massively great content pieces, such as this guest here and various other stuff going on. So they made the decision to move it fully online, because it's actually I think it's in November.
It's normally around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Going ahead, and it's a big fundraising event. So from a peer-to-peer perspective, they have a lot of the different teams who come together and raise money as part of that, and they've actually done a great job of just moving that online. And people aren't coming together to cook chili, but they're still cooking chili, and they're just going to be doing it in their own homes. So I think the technology there now gives us the ability to like join those stuff up together and have people be able to like share that content of what they're doing at home. Yeah, they're not physically in the same place, but you're still able to build and foster that sense of community.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, and the teams probably have their own like spin-off pages, right, where they could like work together.
Yeah. And I'll show you one. Here's this is an example of a theme page here.
Oh, cute. That's fun.
Nice. I like the graphics and stuff.
I do too.
Yeah, and you'll see this isn't a great example of a page that I chose you, but they can add their own content. I think nearer the time when they do it, there'll be a lot of people posting content on their page as to like what they're doing. And the interesting thing about that is it may actually reach a bigger audience on the day, because if I'm doing the chili cook-off in my house with my family on time and I'm posting, all the images to my page, you're also at the same time sharing that via your Facebook channels and your social networks. So all these people who aren't at the chili cook-off and might not be able to have supported you on the day, you're now actually reaching at the same time. So there could be a new donation opportunity there that they wouldn't have had before. Because if you're at the chili cook-off, you're probably less likely to be posting stuff to Facebook on the day and passing it through.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that.
Well, you could,
Also, people might be more inclined to, like, that are involved in getting in there to make more donations as well, because you're not in a big field drinking a bunch of beer. You're actually like engaged in the fundraising, So,
well, and you think about timing, like an event is just a couple of hours where like you're basically expanding that time frame and allowing more people to get involved. And it wasn't like, oh, I
that's
just missed
true.
that particular night. But like you could do videos of you making the chili and put that on your page and post it. So
Yeah, what
that's fun.
is this? Is this a Just Giving event?
Yeah, yeah, this is
Wow.
here. So we've actually, partly in response to what we've seen in the virtual event piece, just enhanced some of the page elements here to add like this gamification and things like this as well. So this is a kind of slightly different version of it.
This is cool.
You can see here, yeah.
I like it a lot.
And I think the other thing that we talked to them about is also the opportunity to, like, by making it more virtual, is gamifying some of like the content pieces. So like, because there's a longer time that you're fundraising and it's not all about the day, can you give them reasons to like start sharing, stories about their pets and their animals, which is really why people are giving. The chili cook-off is nice and it provides a certain motivation for some people to give, but actually having them drive a lot of the content that is related to the cause as well is a bit more kind of aligned to the kind of philanthropic ask that you actually want, and showing like, here's where the money goes, tell us a story about your animal, and that can be brought in a little bit more to the virtual event as well than perhaps
That's one thing I always mention as like a benefit is at the end of the day, it's not just about the dollars being raised, but just awareness. So like a lot of cause and cure. And I worked with an organization a couple months back where just a more rare kind of condition that folks have, and a lot of just getting it out there and finding supporters and finding other folks that are affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very cool. I really like this.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the content play is really big with virtual events as well.
I think you're right. Like when you think about an event, I mean, I would also say there's a certain population that just goes to events because they like events. I mean, I think I could probably count myself in that sometimes, right? Like there are some things I go to because I just like going to events, but I think there's a bigger population who goes to things because they actually care, right? And I think if you are actually going to this event or attending it virtually online, you're really there for the philanthropic reasoning, but you can also push your mission more, which I think is important. And you can get people to be more connected. And perhaps, I don't know if this is at least at all true. Like I'm totally making this up, but I'm wondering if I give to a virtual event and I'm kind of more engaged in that and I'm getting more content about the mission rather than like going and having a few beers in the field, like if I'm a longer term supporter, right? Like if I remember that a little bit more and I remember really the mission a little bit more.
One
Something.
versus just like chatting and being distracted by things, like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
being proactive to go and learn more about this organization. So it's almost, it cancels out some of that white noise of just distractions of being at an event.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and it's one of like the changes that you could potentially see from it. Because something like a marathon that we were doing as well before, are was the kind of vehicle to get donations, but they came more about the activity necessarily than the giving thing. And it's like, okay, so I'm doing a marathon, like you give money to me, which is like fine and it works well for a certain piece, but the
But very
motivation,
transactional.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what you're seeing from why that style of fundraising was slightly in decline, because it became more and more about the event, and actually
Yep.
the philanthropic piece of it, which is why it was there in the first place, kind of starts to remove a little bit for the reason for people to give. And you miss a huge opportunity there. If I'm just giving to my friend because they're running a marathon, like, your chances of retaining me as a donor are very, very small.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but there's a way that I think you can empower the friend. Might not be doing the marathon this time, but why not just like empower them because of just the pure passion that they have for the cause? Like, you don't have to run a marathon. You're just asking me to give because you really love the Charleston Animal
Yeah.
Society. sharing content and telling me about that may be a more effective way long term of bringing me on board as a donor than just giving you because you're finally doing that marathon you talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Yeah. What else you got? This is cool. I like seeing these
Um,
examples.
Yeah, so they've done a really nice job here, I think, with moving what is a physical event online. The other one that we're seeing a ton of is the old gala, because I mean, these were just like such prolific fundraising events, 300K there, like, some of these do just like in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just super hard to replicate. I think this is only a short term, solution. You're not going to see a trend for virtual galas. Like, I just can't see a world, or I don't know if I want to live in a world where like you're sitting in your like tuxedo eating a nice dinner that's,
By your computer.
On your desk. Yeah.
But this is just a good example. Like we've had to, because of the time that this hit, and the revenue that meant to organizations, is just having an easy way that they can bring some of these online to recruit some of the donations or build, keep that sense of community for this year so that they can get back to normal last year. Because you don't want to completely miss the opportunity to engage those people who were taking part of it at that time of year anyway. You want to keep them in that cycle and structure of like, oh, in July or whatever, we go to the task force gala, and that's like our thing. So keeping that as like part of their calendar is a good thing. But I think for these ones, the sooner that it gets back to physical, the better. This is definitely a little bit of a band-aid.
Well, I see like the galas being one for that hybrid approach of like have it leading up. Maybe there's some stuff the night of. You have some leaderboards going for those that are there, but maybe folks that aren't there. Because I agree. I think you definitely want to be in person, but I still think there's that element of you can use this functionality.
I think it's fun how they did the table host thing, though. I think that's really cute. Like, that's a great idea. And also, you're exactly right, Tara. I could see becoming a virtual table host as like a future thing, as an ancillary side to a gala, where, honestly, I can't go to a lot of galas because I got to get a babysitter, and we have a 2-year-old, so we're probably going to bed by 10 o'clock anyway. So I feel like it would be fun to maybe have a little, in the afternoon, Cece and Adam and I could have a table, right, for that organization we really like, and we could host our own virtual table kind of thing.
I like that.
Yeah, it's exactly, and that's where you can bring in the peer-to-peer side from it. And much like, I think the remote working piece has forced a lot of organizations. I know at Babot has forced you to think more about like remote workers and think, gee, like, how are they feeling?
Yeah, don't forget about us.
Yeah. But I think it could be the same here. You've been forced to think about people doing it for remotely. So yeah, we're going to go back into the office and that's going to be the focus. But hopefully in everybody's mind, there's like, okay, there's much more people out there. And in the gala thing that you could engage with this as well. So like, let's have that kind of hybrid piece to it too.
Yeah. Like and in this case, more potential donors.
Yeah. So yeah, we've seen a bunch of the galas moving online, and some of them you can still do the virtual auctions and things like that because there's huge dollar values exchanging there, and we don't have the technology ourselves, but I know there's like a ton out there that can still facilitate some of that stuff. So that's nice that that's been able to continue.
Yeah, there's a lot of online auction technology that you guys can utilize, especially now, of course, but anytime. And also for any of our clients, there are some that we can recommend that actually integrate with some of our software. So we're always happy to talk through that.
The thing I always think that online auctions will be missing if they're online only is like that alcohol piece. Because generally, like the more people have drunk, the more they're
gonna bid.
Like
that's right.
I've definitely done that.
Yes, personally as well. Definitely. And so this seems to have a live streaming component as well. I think it said down here.
Yeah, so here, I think this is actually a previous video for it, but it's the same thing. You can take, in any of the stuff that we're showing here, like taking a live streaming feed if it's on a platform. So we don't necessarily offer like, the video technology that allows to do it, but you've got YouTube, Twitch. Some of these that we've seen for galas, they've got professional people that are filming them, but it's easy enough. I mean, you're just taking some code, and putting it in here so that it can show on this space, and then you've got all the donation metrics and things like that happening as well.
That's cool.
So that's really the advantage to kind of integrating those pieces in is one place that they go. And, you know, some people can do this on their websites themselves, but I think the donation metrics are a big piece of it as well, feeling that sense of community and things happening.
Yeah, and also statistically, if you see the goal, like, you're more likely to give if you're close to the goal versus like really far, that kind of thing. There's like a lot of metrics in there. And I think you're right. I think it's important to show some of this. But also it's just, I think it's important to have a really clean looking website where people can see how many people are getting involved, because it makes you want to get involved. And also who is being involved, right? Tara and I have talked about this before. Oh, my friend Sally gave. Well, I got to give more than Sally gave, right? So
yeah, her
that pesky Sally.
There's a book I read called Elephant in the Brain, and it talks about giving, and it says there's only really like two motivations. It's quite a cynical book. It's basically like you do, like, something is always self-gratifying for you, but when it talks about giving, they say there's two things. There's the warm, fuzzy feeling giving, so that might be giving to a homeless person on the street, but then all the others they call is like you're giving to be seen to be giving, so they call it conspicuous compassion.
Interesting.
I mean, I think there's probably more reasons that people give than that, but they definitely say that it's a big part of motivation is you want to be seen to do it. So that's, you know, and a lot of these stuff, if we accept that some of that might be true, you know, how do we make sure that that community can still be seen to giving? Because they can't, not everyone's seen them put up their hand, you know, for the Tom Brady jersey at the auction. So like, how do you create some of that experience digitally?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, think about it. The traditional annual report has always been around to show the names of everybody that contributes. That's true. Those that don't want to be listed, they can, you know, be anonymous and be respected in that matter. So, I mean, I think it's definitely a factor for sure.
Yeah.
That Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, I don't know if you see it, where there's like the anonymous donation to the hospital wing.
Yes, I have seen that one. Yes.
That's the whole thing. It's anonymous, but everybody knows who it is. But then the other one is just like the stuff that involve a more physical activity as well. And this is just a good example. So Homeboy are an organization actually out on the West Coast, and you can see here they're driving a kind of like physical activity as part of it. So I think the challenge, is the 5K run walk that they're doing for their community. So you can see if I actually see a page here, and people actually through the technology now, because one of the things, you got Strava and a bunch of apps like that can track your fitness activity. So that's actually what's integrated as part of this experience as well. Because
interesting.
I've always thought in the past that it's like, oh, I'm going to be doing this like virtual marathon, and it's like, are you though? You can tell me that you've done it, because you know when you do the traditional marathon, you got the medal and you got all the kind of social proof that exists there. But here it's like,
I ran a 5K yesterday. Sure.
Yeah, sure you did.
Right.
We know that's a lie.
But you can see here, there's actually the ability to integrate in fitness distances, and I'll show you. So now and having that done. As part of things like Strava, you know, a lot of people are already using that stuff, and they just automatically go and log the run, and it can post to their fundraising page as well. And
that's
the total
nice.
is calculated, and you see some quite cool stuff like that. And in fact, one of the first virtual events, this was back in the UK, but it's the British Heart Foundation, they're the biggest heart health charity in the UK. They came up with a really simple concept, but it was My Marathon. And it was just doing the marathon in the month of May. But the reason they wanted to do that is they had a lot of people who were good at doing a lot of, it happened to be, I think, males between like 35 and 50, who did a lot of their traditional events, triathlons, marathons, and things like that. But they wanted to reach audience who didn't necessarily do running before. So the idea of doing like a marathon over the month of May made it really accessible to lots of different people, because they can do it in their own time at their own pace. So they had a bunch of people who'd like never done, and we had, because we were involved with that, a lot of people in the office who'd never run before who took part in it and actually have gone on to become runners. So you can see there's like a nice cause there, because the fitness piece starts to drive people to, start focusing on their well-being and doing running. But what is, for a lot of people, a marathon is just like out of the question.
Yeah.
If you're not in shape,
Like me.
I think it's not even I can't do it, it's I won't.
Right. I have no
run a
desire
10K. I could
to.
run a 10K. I could do that.
Well, so my question are the ones that you've been showing us so far, are those custom where Blackbaud's come in and done some customizations on the Just
Yeah.
Giving pages? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So these are part of the virtual event packages that we've launched. We're going to be working to get all this stuff into the product, but obviously with the speed that this has happened, it was one of the innovations where we kind of provide it as a service.
I mean, these look really slick. I mean, out of the box does the job, but these look really slick.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you, from a cost perspective, these are 3,600, which includes, the full build out of the website.
Wow, that's good.
Pages. So when you think of the investment there and the fact, in a lot of these events, there's not a whole ton other you're investing in. Like you're not having to shut down half your city or your town for a
Right.
week.
Then those are your event expenses.
That's your event expense. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see this person here, they're planning to raise $4,500. So if you think you have a couple of people who would be able to participate, like that could pay for itself for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I like about this is it gives a lot of organizations who because as I mentioned, that running market is a little saturated. There's some fatigue with it. So to kind of come into it and shoulder all the expenses of like running the event, shutting places down, getting paramedics, blah, blah, blah. Here is a really like low cost way that you can try it out and not feel that you've got to incur lots of expenses. So you can still have that flagship running event, but it just doesn't need to be anywhere near the same level of cost.
Yeah, I love it.
Well,
I really
maybe
do love
it's
it.
like we used to do like a biannual auction, so like every other year. So maybe like every couple years you do have that like actual 5K or whatever it is, but like off seasons go this route.
Yeah, that's true. And you can also like do your, like you said, what was it, like do your own marathon? Like instead of even doing a marathon, it's like, what is your marathon, right? Like I practice yoga.
What is
Like,
your marathon look
how
like
many
to
hours
you?
of yoga would I practice in a month, perhaps, and you could do a challenge that's almost like a DIY type of challenge too, which could be fun.
That'd be fun and
Everybody's
incorporate
all
more
about those
people.
challenges. Everybody got
Yeah.
those challenges.
Yeah, I like the personal challenge stuff a lot as well, because again, it takes the pressure off the organization having to hit it exactly right. And, that's what
Yes.
BHF did well, because some people wanted to do the my marathon in 4 hours and they did, but they had like 4 hours, 4 days or 4 weeks. You can do it in any of that time.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a challenge to each of them. Also, the distance stuff is cool because so you can run marathons and do traditional stuff. You can also have like collective goals here. So you see this example of the JDG Foundation. They've got a collective goal that they're trying to track as well.
I like that. That's fun.
cool.
That is
Yeah.
cool. You could do like a mutt strut like that. A lot of we have a lot of animal shelters here and animal welfare orgs that we work with on this podcast, and your mutt strut this year could be just a collective distance. How many miles can you and my dogs are Rita and Ruby? How many dogs? I mean, Rita's blind, so she can
How many
walk about
dogs start
one.
with an R?
Yeah.
I think actually this concept here is that as well as running with their dogs.
Saw some iced tea. That's my boy.
He was on it. Where?
Yeah, scroll up a little bit. Right there.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
He's
Love that guy.
Oh, are these like animals that are associated with vets?
Yep.
Cool. Very cool.
So yeah, there's a ton of uses, and I really like I'll show you this other example here. This was one that we did pre-COVID. Oh no, the website is not up anymore.
Oh. Oh well.
Just double check if there's another place, because this visual is cool because you can start to then plot the distance across like maps and things. So you can have it pop as a totalizer, but you can actually start to think, well, how do you create that as like a mapping experience? So people might be running from, in this example, it was actually through Haiti, where there is, they'd had a number of natural disasters, I think, over the years. And they were able to plot the distance through Haiti. So they had all these people who would never have gone there to run, but are kind of running virtually through the country. And as they go and hit certain points in the map, they're getting different messages around locations and things like that are meaningful. So it's a really
That's
smart way
neat.
you can start to integrate the cause
That is cool.
into that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that.
So Neil, like these are super cool, and I'm really glad you shared these because I think this gives me a lot of inspiration and also an idea that there's a lot of possibility within our platform. What would be like, well, let's say 2 or 3 things you would say to a client today who is like, what are we going to do in 2021 with our virtual events? Like, what would be 3 tips you would give our clients?
Jeez, I wish
Put
you
you on
told
the
me
spot.
before. I know. So the first is, and I think Tara talked about it, is like think of as you're planning for 2021, like nobody knows what's going to happen,
Yeah.
right? There'll be a lot of people who want to get back to like physical events, like understandable. But I definitely have a contingency plan of a physical event that could go back to a virtual event. Like you could just toggle it. Like some of these running events that you've seen here is make sure that that is like built into it because, odds are, well, I mean, let's just say at the moment, nobody knows
Right.
uh,
Right.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think planning for the hybrid is absolutely the way to go because you kind of can't miss.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
The other thing I was taught with virtual events when we do the ideation is a lot of it is really focused on like make sure that it's fit for purpose for your audience because there are a lot of good examples and cool things out there, but they might just not work for your audience.
Yeah.
To really think about, and it might not be the audience that you have today. If there's an audience that you want to go after, like maybe you didn't have runners before, but you want to go after runners, then make it a challenge and something that's exciting for that audience. Don't just, come up with a concept because somebody else has done it and hope that it works for your audience.
Yeah. You know what I want to see out there, guys? I want to see dogs kayaking. I want to see a kayaking dog challenge.
There you go.
Do your dogs kayak?
Or no, but I want them to. And I also would love to see like skateboarding dogs. That would be another thing.
There's your theme, kind of
Yeah.
forms of transport.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that I just think is really important to do is that opportunity of like mixing your calls in for it because I think that's the big opportunity here of whether we'd be doing a lot of the other events where calls can maybe get a bit lost. This is the kind of opportunity to put it back in front and make it like quite core to what the experience is like, whether you're running through here or the content or things like that you're sharing are really driven, to telling the story of what your organization's doing, because that's going to be the thing when you think about peer-to-peer and you've got these people who are going out and sharing that stuff. That's going to be where you're going to acquire for new donors. And like everyone's going to need to acquire more donors who are also passionate about what they do. So it feels like there's an opportunity to really make calls central to the activity.
Yeah.
Well, they can probably grow volunteers as well, just like engagement.
Yep. Volunteers, adopters for animal shelters, new patrons for zoos or whatever. I mean, and also your next big donor could come from something like this. And if your mission is front and center, you're going to really build that experience. And we've showed a few examples, but we would be, if you want to reach out to us, we'd be happy to share others if you need some ideas. But I think my tip that I got from you, Neil, is that you don't have to have the great big idea. You can give your patrons the opportunity to, do with this platform whatever they want, and that will give them the opportunity to, create their own events, and you can get ideas from that, and then you can go off of that. Really,
Yeah,
Almost
that's
like reverse funnel,
yeah.
kind of.
Well, I mean, it just makes so much sense. You've got all these people who are super passionate about what you're doing. There's like way more of them than there is for you. So as good as you might be coming from ideas, like why not crowdsource the idea?
And sometimes I think other people's perspectives are super important. I've been thinking a lot about that lately. You always think you know everything about your business, but maybe other people have good ideas too. So let's open it up. Let's open the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, with your constituents being able to kind of spin off their other pages, they may also have big influence in networks that you didn't even know about. And that's kind of the beauty of peer-to-peer is
Like
you're gaining, exactly. Who would have known? Pups for Patriots. But, you know, those big influencers, it doesn't matter what they say. They may have people following them and wanting to support. So
that's right. Well, I think this was super awesome.
very cool and
really
helpful.
grateful for you, Neil, to join us. So we always end talking about what we're doing this weekend. So, Neil, you want to start? What are your plans for the weekend?
I'm gonna have to make something up. I was just.
I mean, you don't have to make it. It could be like we're eating macaroni and cheese and watching Daniel Tiger all weekend. That's totally cool with me too.
There'll probably be a bit of this. Now I'm thinking I need to go and eat macaroni and cheese. We're actually, my son is starting to play soccer.
Oh,
We
cute.
call it football because you
Yeah.
kick it with your feet. But Americans call it soccer. So yeah, he's starting to play that, which would be a big moment because obviously, like, I was a failed soccer, well, not even a failed soccer player. I never even got close to call myself. So I'll be living very vicariously through him. So I'll be that dad, like shouting on the touchline at my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have a really good friend who coaches his daughter's soccer, and he is like, I mean, they just run. They all run in a pack back and forth, but it's very entertaining. It's very entertaining.
I bet it's adorable.
Yeah, it can only be so cute. I mean,
I'll take a video and send it to you guys. You can see.
yes, please do. Tara, what are you up to?
Well, we have no plans because we had a long weekend to the lake last weekend, but it is our 5-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
So, you know, we'll see what happens. I have like, we don't do gifts, but I actually have a strong need for bedroom slippers. Being a remote worker, I go through slippers like crazy because that's what I wear around the house. So I'm really excited about my new slippers that will be arriving this weekend.
Oh, there you go. How romantic.
I mean, that's true love. True love.
Love it. That's so funny.
What about you, Lord?
We are going up to the lake. We're going to go to Lake Lure with a couple another family that we're very close with. They have two little girls. One little girl is the same age as Cece. But they, 2-year-olds they have fun together, but they fight a lot. So we bought 2 gifts for each kid for different times of each day. So we have like 2 Duplo sets that are exactly the same. 2 matchbox sets that are exactly the same. 2 beach balls that are, and we bought all those things so that we don't bring any other toys except for their lovies. So they can't fight over anything because they each have one of everything.
They'll find a way.
They will find a way. I want the red block from your Duplo set or whatever. But, yeah.
Well, I feel like Lake Lure, like, and maybe it's just I've heard it more recently, but like everyone is going to Lake Lure these days.
Yeah, it's
a lovely spot. It's just like
beautiful.
It's really popular now.
It is super popular now, and I think right now because it's in the mountains and it's also got water, I don't know, people are going. We have friends that have a home there, and we've been lucky to go to their home a lot, so we've gotten familiar with it. And then our friends rented a house. They were like, "Do you want to come?" And we were like, "Yes." Change of scene, 100%.
Nice. Yeah, same here. Well, Dirty Dancing was filmed there, so you know.
Yeah, I'll take photos.
Yeah, hold Cece up.
Yeah. Well, Neil, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, good.